description on women in today's society. I want you guys to pay close attention to the picture that I chose for this presentation, and that is because if you notice, all the different people are different races and they're different sizes and they're dressed all differently, but most of them are just normal women. They're not displayed as a sexual appeal or as a certain object. So on our agenda today, I want to talk about why women equality is important. I want to talk about the perfect image of women that society has displayed for us to look at, the history, and then I have a commercial that I want you guys to pay close attention to because I think it is a perfect example of why women see themselves as less of a person to a male figure. I have done some research on the different reasons as to why I feel that that ad had displayed the versions of gender stereotypes. I also want to talk about the long-term effects and the pressures that we have. And at the end, we will decide discussion questions for you guys to reflect on. So why is it important? Why is it important for genders to feel like they are less than a person? They should not feel like less of a person. I feel that this is personally important to me because I am a woman and I am older, so I am now going to get my education, and I want to make sure that all women are able to feel like they are comfortable getting an education and not forced into doing something just so they can make themselves feel better. Another thing is certain jobs. Like I said, I will be in a field where unfortunately men are not accepted into the field of children, but I would like to think that even if a man decides to want to be able to do that, that they should be able to, as well as women who choose male roles. I feel like engineering, they should be able to join and be an engineer if they see fit. So we go down to stereotypes. Women a lot of times feel like less of a person. A lot of the times, even as a young child, you are told to be a certain way. You are told by your parents sometimes to wear cute dresses. A lot of parents do not let their children play with toys or like cars because that would assimilate a boy toy. Whereas girls are displayed to be beautiful and have their hair done and have their nails done, and that's not fair to the people who want to be more analytical in their lifestyles. So it goes to the idea of a perfect woman. The idea of a perfect woman to society that I would like to think would be the hourglass body that we're looking at, the thin, sexy, the lust appeal, the type that would catch your attention right then. And sometimes, a lot of the times in our class, for example, we saw a commercial ad with a girl on her knees, barely dressed, with a lipstick in her mouth. That was clearly not to display the lipstick itself. It was to gain a person's attention on how to look sexy and beautiful to that male figure or whoever they are trying to appeal, but to buy the lipstick. So another thing, like I said, clothes in fashion, your hair's done, your nails are done. I am personally not one of those people. I do not enjoy any of those objects. But however, I do enjoy doing some feminine things that I feel like a lot of the times we get influenced to do those things and we feel like less of a person or less of a woman because we do those certain things in general. The other last thing would be a lot of times in the olden days you would be there for childbearing or you would be there to take care of your children. A lot of the times now we are seeing that women want to go in the workforce, but they still have that stereotype that if something goes wrong with their child, then why weren't they at home taking care of that child? Because that's what a woman's job is. And sometimes you'll see a male that will just come home from work and they'll expect their wife, just because they're a stay-at-home parent, to do everything, which is not fair. And that all generalizes an idea around gender stereotypes. So I wanted to talk about the history and the current events that happen in our lifestyle. So back in 1848, that is where they did women's rights, so you were able to first start to have your rights, but you didn't have a whole lot. And Catherine Brewer in 1840 was the person to be able to get her degree. And I think she did that a lot of the times we learned in previous classes from our degrees that we are in, is that she had to fight for that right to have her education. No woman should have to fight for their right to have that. And you were able to vote as a woman in 1918, and like I had said before, your home life and expectations were to be the wife, to be at home, to be that prize for your husband or significant other to display, you weren't really known as a person outside of your home. But you were judged as a woman if your home didn't look like it should have. So now today, we have a lot of those same women's rights. We're able to vote, we're able to get an education. The only thing I wanted to touch base on this style is because there is more work life. So for example, my aunt, she is an engineer. She works quite a bit now. She does pay a sitter to stay at home to take care of her children, but she has also had to work very hard for her degree. She has been had to learn multiple languages. My aunt can speak fluent languages, which sometimes I wonder if she did that not because she wanted to learn those, but because she felt that she would be more of a profitable candidate for somebody over a male figure. And I know she works in Chicago, so that is a pretty prominent city that a lot of people want to make sure that they have those prominent people. So for my aunt to be one of those top people, I'm very proud of her for, but I hope that she didn't do that as a gender stereotype. So the next slide is my commercial ad that I want you guys to look at, and I want you to pay attention to all of the roles in general, as such as the male and the female. So I am going to go display that now.
Could have gone either way. It was right on the line. Well, Ferguson's not too happy with it, I can tell you that much. He's beating him like a rented mule. And the ref's just tuning him out. Boy, where do you train to take a beating like that?
He said, when's that porch gonna get painted and that litter box? It's been 3 weeks! 3 weeks! I don't think I could have married Don Hoffman. And would it hurt for you to say that you love me once in a while?
So as you can see, that commercial was very upsetting as a woman to see, because the stereotype right there would be displayed as a woman is nagging at their husband or their boyfriend or their children all the time, and they just nag and they don't get to enjoy life, and that's not fair, because all that displayed was that women are these horrible naggers and they just need to be somewhere else. So these are the comments that people made under the YouTube video, and I'm just going to read 2 of them. It says, wow, that person needs to take it down 2 levels to the basement where you can't hear her and the laundry room is at. I'm going to guess your wife is PMSing. That's not fair. People should be able to display their emotions the way that they feel that they want to. So mixed messages. Why was a woman yelling at her husband when we know that stereotypical, it would be that sometimes males yell at their wives or whatever too. But you notice that there is a correlation between men and women. It was the woman nagging, constantly yelling at her husband, not doing nice things, when that display is, who is that in front of? What if that person had a child? Those now child or children think that their mom is just going to nag all the time. That also displayed the nagging in communication, such as that gives the right for a person to then ignore one. The referee was ignoring people in his job. He was ignoring his wife. He may start to ignore his children, and he may start to ignore people in society that he just doesn't want to listen, to. And that's not fair to do that. So what impact does that put on families is the ad itself was displaying for beer. So that tells me, from what I got personally from the ad, is that do you think it's okay to not listen to your wife, that you can then not listen to your job, that if you drink, and you drink Budweiser, for example, from this commercial, that all of your problems are going to be solved and it's going to be just fine until the next fight. So I did some research on this, and if you guys look at the picture and the image up on the top right corner, you guys might recognize that. I personally had an experience with this. I was 13 years old when this came out. The research behind it was in 2004, 86 million people watched the Super Bowl. So 86 million people watched Justin Timberlake expose Janet Jackson's personal parts out to the world to be displayed. Now, how does that show a male should be able to treat a woman, especially on live TV? That was a huge controversial, and I thought that it was ironic that this was what happened at the halftime show, and in 2004, the commercial that I showed you was the same commercial that was advertised. So that has literally told men that it is okay to degrade women and not listen to them, and it is just fine. So in 2017, 103 million people watched it. So that is telling me that the more ads they put out, the more people are seeing those, and then they're going to display those same actions. As far as audiences, again, I was a child as 13, and I still remember that, and it still has had an impact on what I feel of Justin Timberlake. To this day, after seeing that on live TV, I do not watch his music, I do not listen to his music, and I'm not a fan of him as a person. Not because of him being a male, but because of what he did to somebody that is a female that could possibly be happening to me or a different other female that I did not think was okay at all. So some research I did as to display how I felt about the ad that I had chosen was it states poor communication can create a sense of dissatisfaction, confusion, low self-esteem, and can lead into getting into dangerous activities such as drinking. So for example, the ad itself was displaying Budweiser as what you should do if you don't want to listen and people are just nagging at you. The pressure on women, we have that pressure from friends and family. We tend to go shopping with our friends. We tend to buy some of the same things as our friends, not because we enjoy doing that, but because that's what society tells us to do. Is we have that certain image, such as if you go to like Plato's Closet, for example, they only take certain brands of clothes because that's what's in style. Not because that's what's cheap and free for people to buy, but because that's what people are going to buy. But the problem with that is, why are they buying that brand of clothes? Is that because that's what they like, or that's because what they see on commercials or ads? The other one would be media and the history repeating itself. So a lot of the times now we are seeing a trend of moms are tending to stay at home with their children. So we find out that a lot of children now are being raised by single parents, and we are also being judged for that as well, just being a single parent. So some long-term effects on women would be depression and anxiety, surgery and reconstructive surgery, fad diets and diets disorders such as eating disorders are a huge issue right now, anxiety, family issues such as breaking homes, or that immediate reaction when something goes wrong, we're quick to blame one or the other person. And communication and education standards, as far as I feel that a lot of women, yes, they're going to get their education, but I do, however, like I said, worry that some people are getting their education not to better themselves, but to better themselves for a society to make them look more profitable. So now comes to a closing. So now we've discussed the ad itself, we've discussed the stereotypes, we've discussed the history and the current events that are happening now in today's society. So I want to ask you guys as the discussion questions. It says, if we keep the trend of women as a minority, could history repeat itself and go back to the days where women had less rights? The other one I would like to point out is, can you guys name any events or current characteristics that display that women may or may not start losing their rights? I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.